Hi, I'm Terri Murphy from the Women's Wisdom Network, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate in the Men's Room. And RIS Media contacted me last month and said, we want January 2021 to be a spotlight on women in leadership. And guess what? I have one of the best leaders that are female in real estate, and her name is Sue Yannaccone. She is the Regional Executive Vice President of the Eastern Seaboard and Midwest regions for Realogy's Coldwell Banker company-owned offices. And she started that way back in 2018. Is that correct?
That's right.
239 offices. Is that still accurate?
It's right around there. Yep.
And in my favorite places, New Jersey, Long Island, Washington, D.C., Central Pennsylvania, Philly, Ohio, Chicago, my hometown, St. Louis, and Minnesota. On top of all of that, you have podcasts. We're going to get to that, but you have podcasts. You have a daughter that is young. You are annoyingly effective, and you get it all done. And that's what they wanted to know about, to share with other women who are, looking at you as a role model. So what they asked us to share, Sue, was 3 particular issues. The first one being women challenges in the C-suite. Now, there you are at Coldwell Banker. Hello. And you've got a beautiful background in rising up to C-suites. Tell us a little bit about what you think are your primary challenges, especially as we go into 2021 with this unusual circumstances that we're in.
Well, first, thank you so much for your kind words and for being here. I'm happy to be part of this. And I do have a little daughter. You can see the reality of that in my background with my drawings from her and her crazy school schedule on my whiteboard that I have to do because she's all virtual. So I do think one of the challenges outside of, or maybe intertwined with work today, is certainly that, right? The reality of a new reality and business being done from home for many people, and children being home or having to caregive. So I think that to me is one of the biggest challenges. Not just getting through that, but remembering that work has to be done. And I've been trying to frame my entire, call it last 7 or 8 months, through the mindset of making sure people are healthy and safe, right? Assuming good intent in our leadership decisions and protecting our business. Because I think what has happened is we had a pause when things occurred and the world sort of hit pause. And it was my job, I felt, to continue to keep everybody focused on still achieving their goals and still accomplishing through challenges and whatever comes, sort of out of left field that we may not be prepared for, calling on anything we've done in the past to continue moving forward and achieving those goals. The path may change, but we still have to have success and we still have to accomplish things. And as a leader, not allowing sort of the emotional side of things to lead, and rather being as empathetic but pragmatic and focused on results still it's been challenging.
Well, the empathy factor is the number one, according to HBR, Harvard Business Review, the number one leadership thing. And one of the things we learn in the book you and I were just talking about, Humans Are Underrated, is that empathy means different things to different people. In leadership, it's more about listening. And for you to be a leader in a time that is highly filled with uncertainty and ambiguity. But you mentioned something that was really important. You talked about, and I like to call it the roadblock or the rabbit hole. So the roadblock came up, and we all know that was the pandemic. And you can go into the rabbit hole. I think we all did for about a week and went, well, this is cool. We get to wear yoga pants all day. But then the roadblock really helped us discover new ways. And so, and with that, I want to segue into strategies. You talked about being empathetic, listening, making people feel safe, but continuing to push business forward. Because we know statistically, according to Lawrence Yuen, real estate's off the charts. I mean, it is amazing. It's an amazing time, and it has forced us to do things differently. What kind of solutions have you found that have been evident with your company and your leadership?
Absolutely. I think agility has come into play in a way that we've probably tried to encourage with individuals, but it was a requirement now. And so just simply pivoting to a more virtual environment, allowing people the flexibility to work from where they were comfortable and where they feel safe and secure, right? So we pivoted at Coldwell Banker to, all virtual. So everybody going from in the office to home, right? So leveraging technology more. We've had to implement, ways in which you said the real estate market's going, gangbusters right now. People are making more today than they did in prior years because they leverage tools in a different way. Perhaps they are, doing Facebook, open houses, virtual open houses, rather than actually, walking somebody through a house. And as a leader, you draw on that as well. So you look at what's working for people. I think I had to give people the opportunity to take a minute, to take a breath, to figure out how they were going to work in this environment. We have unprecedented access into people's homes now when we're communicating with them and connecting with them. And that makes some people really uncomfortable. So how do we help them set boundaries? How do we lead by example by setting our own boundaries, right? So people understand that, from my perspective, I don't think I ever really cared all that much about the hours that you work, just get the job done. Right.
That's our girl.
Cause come on, we all have stuff we have to do. And so it was more for me about ensuring everybody on my team felt that and understood that. So I'm very open and honest and transparent. I'll get on town halls and talk to my team about, I don't take meetings before X time in the day because I'm getting my daughter ready for school. Or, hey, if you have to take whatever it may be, I think as a leader, leaning into that vulnerability and that reality of what we're all going through, that we try, especially as women, to put that bravado up all the time. And I think at the end of the day, you gain more trust from your team if you're able to show that exists, but yet you're able to come through it and still figure out a way to get it done. And for me, it was allowing people room and then helping them center back on something tangible to focus on, to keep moving forward to keep holding them accountable to it. Because in a time of things being totally out of control, I think giving them something they could control, a goal that they could focus on, was super helpful and centering for people.
Well, you mentioned three things that were really important. Vulnerability, I think, engenders trust because it shows that things don't always go perfectly. You talked about transparency, which, yes, we have a new level of transparency because we are working from home. And then the third part, I think, that was really important is that you specified boundaries. Now, I don't think women, in all the work I've done in the interviews I've done, which has been well over 250 interviews that were organized interviews, that boundaries was not our best card. We tend to be so highly adaptable. And like you said, you've got some pretty strict boundaries. I like to use a stoplight. Red light is absolutely non-negotiable in negotiating. And for your daughter's time getting her ready, that is key. Now, for women, though, we tend to be so adaptable that it goes into accommodation. And so in a men's room, as I like to call it for Murphy, the men's room, did you find that difficult? Did you find it that they respected that? Because like you said, when you're in a leadership position, it's not 9 to 5. It's 24/7. You've got huge responsibility. So how did you manage that?
I think it's evolved over time for me. So take the pandemic out of it. When I was coming up and younger in my tenure, I was not good at setting boundaries. And I think I felt that I had to just have no boundaries, be available all the time. And what I found over time is I wasn't effective that way. And I wasn't effective. I was trying to show up a lot of times as someone I wasn't, right? So, and that's exhausting. And so I found that I had to just instill those and come what may, right? This is who I'm going to be. This is where I'm going to set boundaries. Now, to many, I have no boundaries because their boundaries are significantly more than mine, right? I don't take unrealistic expectations of me time or, because I balance, to your point, it's a 7-day-a-week constant work. I get that. I own that. But I did find, and I find now as I've set them, there's more respect for it. I think people respect me for it. All of the team that works for me respects that. And I've seen them and encouraged them to do more of the same as well, right? I think you have to set the tone for how you want to be treated, and then in turn treat others the same way as it relates to that. So I think part of it came with some confidence in myself and my abilities, and knowing that, hey, if I set a boundary for an hour a day to leave me alone, guess what? I'm not right. And you know what? It's not going to make me fail in my career, and it's not going to make anybody, and it wasn't, I've said to people when I was running a global brand, look, I also realized that I have to travel a lot, and I'm not going to be home a lot, and I'm going to miss a lot. I never walked in and expected to say to whomever, yeah, I love this job, but I'm not going to travel. Like, my boundary is that I'm not going to go to Singapore or whatever. Like, that doesn't work. So you have to be realistic about the boundaries you set within the roles that you have, and then stick to them. And then you'll, I think, earn the respect of others around you through that.
Well, clearly you do. And you've got a great admin team that help you with that. No, I mean, Stephen's terrific.
He's wonderful.
And that leads us back to life balance, which is the third element of what they wanted for this article. And that is elusive in so many ways, because life is not predictable. I mean, some days the truck breaks down and there's a snowstorm and there's something. If you have a name like Murphy, it's common. It's just a thing. So for life balance, here's one of the issues I know for high performing women is that we are warrior, we are warrior people. I mean, we can get her done, and you especially manage to communicate that and get it done. I mean, I do want to talk a little bit about your podcast series, because people go, oh my God, she's got a young daughter, she's married, she's got this ginormous job, she runs, she eats healthy stuff. It's like, okay, how do you do all that? And it is a life balance issue. But what I've learned is that there is life balance, but it is not this, from the other interviews, it is not this current thing that just kind of flows along. I mean, because it is, what would you like to say? Interesting, unpredictable?
Unpredictable for sure. I think that it's one of the reasons I started or really leaned in on my series that we'll talk about with What Moves Her is I wanted a very realistic viewpoint of what it takes to lead at a high level, or be extremely successful. And I think women in general through the years have painted this altruistic and unrealistic version of, or vision of, balance. And you can have it all and blah, blah. Well, okay, you can, but you can't have it all at the same time. And I think that, it's balance is constant in motion, right? Like, you're constantly wiggling, and there are days where work takes all my effort and I miss dinner, or I don't do this. And there are other days where my family comes first without question. And I think we have to be really honest about that. And somebody said to me once, oh, so you sacrifice a lot. I said, well, I don't consider it sacrifice when you're doing what you love. And I love both sides of that equation. And I think as a leader, one of the reasons I kind of took this on the dialogue with women about it is I think we put too much pressure on ourselves based on this false narrative, right? And it's
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's okay to also fall down some days. I walked out of this office a couple months into the pandemic, maybe 2 months in, because we had that just craziness for weeks. And then it was like I was in here for 13 hours and I walked out and it was 7:30 at night. And I looked at my husband and daughter and I was like, I'm done. And I just went upstairs and went to bed, right? I was done. There was no balance. I had no balance left to give to the rest of my life, right? I'd given it all that day. And I tell people that, and maybe some people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. I want people to know it's real. Like there's not a, you don't do this without ever having that moment of I'm tapping out right now. I'm just tapping out.
And yes, and when we do that, sometimes the universe helps us out and takes us out for a while. That there's no even broken cookie left in the cabinet kind of thing after we've taken care of that. But I mean, at some point on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really great, some women, especially those annoying ones that look great and their nails are done and their hair is perfect and they have the right outfit and everything fits. We don't like them. But what you have to respect about that is that they took the time to take care of self.
Yes.
And as a mother, and you know this, you want to take care of your family and your children first. Even the dog gets really good attention. And then you're sitting there all fried up. So do you absolutely, I mean, you just told us you stopped and went to bed, but I mean, are there other things you do to reboot? I'd like to call it rebooting.
Absolutely. You have to. And that's part of those boundaries. And that's part of that prioritization. And it's not selfish to put you first sometimes. And I think that's a lesson that, and a mindset that women have to get much more comfortable with. I try and exercise every day, or at least 4 or 5 times a week. Some weeks are better than others. Sometimes life just doesn't allow that. I like to get up and have my coffee by myself. Those simple things. I think what I have found is it doesn't need to be, for me, I have to be much more intentional in smaller moments than making it like I don't get whole days by myself to do anything, right? But the hour-long walk with my dog, without my phone, without music, without just centering a little bit. I started meditating this past year when things started getting, so it's that 30 minutes of just nothing, just learning to turn it off or recenter. And for me, during the pandemic, I'm home for dinner. I haven't been home for dinner in 13 years. I haven't been home, so even little things like that for me are sort of rebooting, I mean, because it's something I haven't been able to enjoy in mass for a very long time.
Yeah, that whole digiphrenia piece of our brain and having even that 30 minutes of space or coffee alone. I mean, that's been a kind of a recurring theme here. Do tell us a little bit about the podcast and how that came about and why we should get more people involved in that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I started this series, What Moves Her, as part of the Coldwell Banker Women initiative. And it's really, it's given me almost as much as I hope it's giving to other women, maybe more. Ryan Gorman came to me sometime last year and said, what's your thing? You got to, and I'm like, I need a thing on top of it. Like, what? Like, okay. And so and he led me, he kind of breadcrumbed it because I think he knew exactly what I felt was missing, which was reaching a broader audience with this message, because I didn't have it. I've never worked for a woman. I didn't have all my mentors in my career were men, amazing men that pushed me forward before I ever thought I was ready to be. And that is incredible. But I realized when I reached a certain level and people started asking me how I did, what did I do, all these things, I was like, well, first of all, somebody cares, like that's weird. And then second of all, like, wow, it made me kind of look up and realize that there was a little bit of a void. There are a lot of women doing amazing things in our industry, but there wasn't a very global platform. And so I created What Moves Her to really focus on tangible skill set building for women to develop their leadership style and their leadership competencies. I opened it to everyone in the industry. So while it's through Coldwell Banker, it's open to anyone in our industry, anyone really anywhere. And it pulled from women, not just within real estate, but who've reached a level in their career anywhere. I think we tend to hear the same voices in our industry a lot. And so I wanted to bring outside perspectives in. So it started in Chicago. We did a live event. It was going to be a live series throughout the country. We very rapidly had to pivot to doing it virtual. And we renamed it The Portraits of What Moves Her. And that's where the podcast component of it evolved, because now they were recorded and it was interviews like this, and then we could repurpose it. And it's been amazing. I've brought on women, not just from within our company we did a session on, taking control of your career and taking control of your life, which women could use a lot of help sometimes doing, which is, acknowledging all the facets and then saying, okay, but I want to do this. And I'm going to be very intentional about my steps to get there. We had Sally Roberts on, who is the founder of Wrestle Like a Girl. And she was a elite Greco-Roman wrestler, as well as a combat veteran, and talking about, succeeding in a man's world and overcoming objections. And Summer Sanders, a US Olympian, who talked about the power of the pivot, and it was so timely during COVID to bring her on, because it was, look, she talked about her injuries right before she was, in the Olympics, and not making the first team that she wanted, and just how you overcome that through mindset. We had a whole session focused on health and wellness from Delia Posse was on, who's the founder of the Women's Choice Award. So for me, it's been amazing to hear these stories, but take it beyond just sort of feel good, rah, rah,
Yes.
kind of sisterhood to, wow, I can take this and act. And it's been awesome. Like, I had one event and I got a call the next day from somebody who works with us who said, hey, I really want to be on your series because here's what I've done and here's what I can give back. And I love that. So I brought her on and had her. It was Passion Broussard, right? And then
I know Pat. Yeah, Passion's terrific.
It's amazing. Yeah. And then I had, other agents that have reached out to me that I've helped mentor beyond now, or coach to take on the next step. So it's creating action, and it's showcasing women that are sort of, I think when you and I were talking before, I want to not own the only seat at the table. I want to scoot over and bring more chairs up for more women, right?
Oh, and excellent. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, we're on the same lines with Women's Wisdom Network. When I tried to start that years ago, is that there is undiscovered talent out there. Yes, there's the celebrity levels, and they get there because it's a beautiful story and it's a journey that we share with others. But then there are these women that are out there doing amazing things that don't get the voice, and that's what we're doing in different ways. But it's interesting how the universe aligns us, because it's the same energy of uplifting and showcasing and sharing, because that's what this is about. And I think when a woman of your caliber says, look, I went to bed, okay, that tells you that you're human and you're willing to share that with other women, because you're right, the highly polished, a highly glamorized level of what we catch on social media or even any kind of marketing doesn't really always depict life as it is. And even in those challenges, we get to learn, like I said, roadblock or rabbit hole. So I want to thank you for sharing this. How would someone contact you if they wanted to have you speak? And then do mention the podcast where we can find it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you can go on the website, whatmovesher.com, or blog.caldwellbanker.com/portraits of what moves her. You can find me. I'm on Facebook. I think I'm the only Sue Yannaccone, maybe. I don't know. Instagram, Sue Yanna. Definitely the only Yannaccone at Caldwell Banker. So
all I have to do is put in Sue Yannaccone, and there's like 36 million results, because you've done so much great work. I am so personally delighted that you would share with us here, and as well as RAS Media. Thanks for joining us. I hope you'll join us again.
Absolutely.
On our Spotlight for Women in Leadership.
Thank you. And thanks for all you're doing as well. I appreciate it.
Molto piacere, we say in Italian, huh?